first started in business when I was 16 or 17, but my thoughts about business came a little bit earlier. I was about probably 11 or 12 when I started to think, how can I actually make money and how can I start a business? And while my friends were doing paper rounds and going on the milk floats, I thought, actually, you don't earn a lot of money doing that. So I went into tennis coaching and I helped my English teacher at school and learnt the ropes over a couple of years, coaching in the summer holidays. And from that, I learnt so much. And I decided when I was 16 or 17 to start my own tennis academy. I'm always asked, did I from a very young age always think I was going to be an entrepreneur? Well, to be quite frank, I don't think I did. What I did think, though, was the fact that I wanted a better life. I saw people driving around in nice cars, living in lovely houses, and I wanted that. So if that made me entrepreneurial at a young age, then the answer is yes. I was an entrepreneur and had those thoughts at a very young age. But I didn't think of myself as being an entrepreneur until I probably didn't even know what the word meant till I was about 18 or 19. I just wanted a better life and I wanted to earn money. Having success at a young age kind of went to my head a little bit and I enjoyed all the fruits of it. I had a house when I was 19, I had all of the nice cars, but it all came to a very, very swift end in my late 20s when I lost my computer business. And to be perfectly honest, I think I lost that through a lot of naivety. I think the business was running away with itself. I had no previous experience of running a real business, and I certainly had no real industry experience. And I failed to look after the most important thing, which was the assets of the business. In other words, what I didn't do was take out credit insurance. So I was supplying people with product, and in the late 80s, when the recession hit, it hit those companies, which in turn hit me. And probably the biggest mistake I made was not seeing that earlier and taking out the appropriate measures, i.e. a simple thing like credit insurance, which actually would have probably only cost me about £8,000 to £9,000 a year at that point, but I lost everything when I was 29. So there's a very big lesson to learn there. People talk a lot about failure, and it's not something that comes into my vocabulary because I actually think that failure is basically feedback. I think if you see yourself as a failure, you become one, and you've got to learn from failure. So for me, I changed the word failure to feedback, and I think if I can ask anybody to do anything, when they're reading the Oxford English Dictionary under the word failure, close their mind, reopen it, and think that word has changed to feedback, because that's all it is really. You've just got to learn from it. Everything you do is not going to be successful, so just learn from it. It's feedback. I started a Phones International Group in 1998 for two reasons really. One, I'd spent the previous 2 or 3 years getting myself back on my feet after losing my business, and I went back into industry. And the pure and simple reason of why I did that was because I didn't have a car, I didn't have a house, I didn't have any money. Very difficult to start a business when you're in that predicament. So I had to go and work for somebody else. All I was doing was buying time, earning enough money to go and start up again. And I saw a huge opportunity in the mobile phone market. Everybody was talking about mobile phones, and I decided to go into that marketplace. The reason I think for my success in a very short space of time was because we looked at the market slightly differently. I saw all the incumbent players in the market and I thought, you know what, we'd do something different. So we set up about doing something called, which I named single brand distribution, which was focusing on one product set. We focused just with Ericsson. And what that did was all of my employees became product champions. They knew that product so well. And even our customers at one point thought that actually, when they made a phone call to us, they were calling Ericsson themselves. So we gave an amazing amount of service, and we championed the product and the range. We also became Ericsson's largest customer, not just in the UK, but in Europe, in a very short space of time. And I think that's one of the main critical success factors of our business, which was, I could describe that as being focused. The business over the last 8 to 9 years has really come on leaps and bounds. And actually, the business model has slightly changed and been tweaked, and we've entered new markets. Of late, over the last 18 months, I spend far less time in that business because I've put the appropriate management in there and I've put some really good people to go and run that business for me. Although I'm still a hankler for figures, so every single day I still get the sales numbers, the stock figures and the overall performance of the group by 10:30 every morning. So I'm still on top of it. And if there's anything in there that I don't like, I'm straight on the phone to the group MD. But other than that, it's monthly board meets, setting the strategy, and allowing me to go and do the multitude of other things which I do, which is now invest in a lot of businesses and obviously do a fair bit of television work. I'm often asked by people, how easy is it today to set up a new company or start a new business. And it isn't that easy. Obviously, we can go to company's house, we can buy a company off the shelf, we think of an idea, we might be able to have a little bit of our own money or borrow some. But what's the infrastructure support out there? Well, surprisingly, there's a lot of advice, a complete myriad of advice. And I think that's the issue. There is now the onslaught of the World Wide Web, where we can get access to information at the click of a button. The issue with that is the fact that it's not consolidated into one area or one demographic. So you've got all kinds of different pieces of information from all kinds of different centres, like business link, what the government institutions are saying. We've got venture capital support, funding from local banks. I think what we need to do is actually focus in, how do you actually get a business operational today? 20 years ago, it was very simple. We went to our bank manager, we asked them for some money, and they gave us some money, and we go and start a business. Well, today, it's a lot more complicated than that. Banks have got wise, banks have lost a lot of money, so now they want security. How does somebody start without any money at all? Well, it's very, very difficult. And I think as we see time go on, it's going to become more and more difficult to raise the money necessary for your business. One of the biggest pieces of advice I can give to somebody wanting to start a business is really think about it. And that sounds an easy statement to make, but you'll be surprised the amount of people that think of a business idea and think, well, I'm just going to go and set a company up and go and make it work. Well, don't. Stop. Research your market. Do you really feel passionate about what you're entering? Do you really want to make it work? Or is it actually you're in a fix? A lot of people set up businesses because they've either been made redundant or they've got nothing else to do. Or they're working for a company and think, I can do this just as well. Well, I think they should literally stop, take a deep breath and think again. I think what's really important is that they research their marketplace, they understand why they're doing it. And then when they think they understand why they're doing it, go out into the market, test the idea, talk to people, not friends and family. You go and talk to friends and family and they'll always encourage you, always think your idea is great. You've always got the one or two obnoxious family members that can't stand your idea, but they just want to be confrontational. Go out to people that you haven't met before. Talk to people on the street. Look and see how things are working around you. Think about competition. Who are the competition? Who will you be up against? Get information on them. So for me, research, 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 research. And when you really are confident that you know the nuts and bolts of how this business ticks, that's the point to launch a business. To ask what is the most common mistake that I see on Dragon's Den or in most businesses is a very difficult question to answer. The reason for that is that there are so many different mistakes that people make, from the way that they dress, which actually is a bone of contention with me, and I'll tell you why. There's a bone of contention in the way people dress is because I believe that first impressions count. And if they come on with jeans and a ripped t-shirt, I kind of think, you don't really want this. So that's why I think it's really important. So there's a key mistake that people make, is actually not believing that first impressions do count, because believe me, they do. No bank manager is going to give you £150,000 when you look like you've been dragged through a bush backwards and you've been up all night. So presentation is about preparation. The other issue that people make is the fact they don't know their market well enough and they get their numbers completely wrong. And we've seen many people on Dragon's Den flounder over detailed questioning about their numbers. You don't have to be an accountant to understand top-line numbers, but at least understand what revenue and sales is and the difference between gross profit and net margin. It's very, very important. So knowing the basics about running a business is vital, but you'll be surprised the number of people that just don't know the basics. The other mistakes that people make is that they over-exaggerate. Never over-exaggerate. You can always be and tweak it a little bit more. So if you're talking about doing £1,000 worth of sales and you think you can get to 2,000, well, say, I want to get to 2,000, but I believe we can do 1,000. But you'd be surprised the amount of people that turn around and say, I think the turnover could be 10 million, when they haven't even invested in the marketplace or researched the market to know that actually the whole market is only worth £10 million. So it comes back to research. People don't do enough research, and they should. When I'm investing in people, one of the 2 or 3 things that I'm looking for is, firstly, I'm looking for how they present clearly. And I want to know about the person. Because if I'm going to end up working with this person for the next 2 or 3 years, I don't want it to be a bad marriage. I'm not going to want to be working with somebody that I actually don't like. So for me, liking the person is really quite important. I want the person to have real passion and drive and enthusiasm for their idea. I don't want them to be laid back and think, I don't really need this. So I want them to have sheer determination and passion about what their product and their idea is. But the final part of what I'm looking for is clearly not just a good idea, but I'm looking for the potential for that to be a great idea.